سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله.
وقل ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وشفيعنا وحبيب قلوبنا المصطفى الأمجد والرسول المسدد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم كتابه المبين: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وإن تدعو مثقلة إلى حملها لا يحمل منه شيء ولو كان ذا قربى إنما تنذر الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب وأقاموا الصلاة ومن تزكى فإنما يتزكى لنفسه وإلى الله المصير. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today we begin the 7th lecture, inshallah, in this series on tazkieh to Nafs, purification of the self. And brothers and sisters, this series that we began has been looking at the importance of how a servant of God, a believer in God, must strive to improve and purify and advance him or herself. And to be able to take this journey on, to be able to walk this path of self-purification, one must understand the qualities and the elements that are necessary, that are required on that path, the tasks that are necessary. And in doing so, you recognize first and foremost the position of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obligation to Him, and then the understanding of our own selves. And in this way, we try to maintain balance, because anything that takes us out of balance is a disturbance and keeps you away from tazkieh to nafs, or purification of the self. And so we discussed not only adl, but justice and balance in life, giving everything its proper measure and its proper place, but also sabr, that which allows you to maintain balance and keep your nafs in control, in balance, always on the right path and the right course. And we talked also about taqwa, or consciousness of God, that as you walk the path of purification, you want to have consciousness and awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so you do not come out of the bounds of God and transgress His rules. And in the last episode, we spoke about tawbah, or repentance, which was us, or was the person turning back, turning their face back towards God when it had been turned elsewhere, turning back, facing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in fact repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking His forgiveness. And so as we commence now today's lecture, we will begin to talk about the quality of haya, or dignity, self-dignity. Self-dignity is an important quality to have, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the human nature very, very specifically. He has given it great capacity, great power, great capability, not only physically, but emotionally, mentally, and most important, spiritually. Allah has given us the tools and the capacities so that we can fly, so that we can be very, very great in our achievement. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu was salam, he says, أَتَظُنُّ أَنَّكَ جِرْمٌ صَغِيرٌ وَفِيكَ انطَوَى الْعَالَمِ الْأَكْبَرُ. Do you think you are this small speck, this small dot, when the entire universe is inside of you? So we must understand that if the universe is inside of us, the capability to achieve anything is very great inside of us. The capability of advancing and rising up in humanity and in service of Allah is very great inside of us. But we must begin to understand that to do so, we must be dignified. We must have self-dignity, and we must be able to understand that that dignity is what is going to allow us to advance in level. As such, faith is very important. To be able to incorporate dignity into your life, you must have faith, obviously, to begin with. You must have the thing that connects you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is your iman. And Al-Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam, he describes, and this is a tradition that has been relayed to us in Al-Kafi, he says to one of his companions that iman, or the path of increasing or moving up towards Allah in faith, has 10 degrees. It is like a ladder. One step is ascended after the other. You go from one step to the next step to the next. Iman is like a ladder. And so again, I ask you to keep in mind that as one would climb this ladder, you would need to have greater purification to climb it. Tazkiyatun Nafs is necessary for one to climb the ladder of Iman. Imam says to his companion, after telling him that Iman is like a ladder with 10 steps, he says, nobody who occupies the second level, the second step, should say to the one who is on the first step below him that you do not have anything. You do not have, you should not judge somebody who is on another step or who is on a different step. You should not until you are able to ascend up to the 10th step. That is a very difficult task. We cannot judge other people based on what we feel is our perceived position. Imam also says, do not look down upon one who is below you, or else he who is above of you may cause you to slip and fall. Remember that just like you may have a position above somebody else, there is invariably somebody who has a position above you. And just by that arrogant thought that you are above someone may make you fall down. Imam also says that when you see somebody who has in a less degree than you or a lower step than you, he says, raise him or her up kindly. Treat them with kindness, do not overburden them, and do not allow them to break. Climb them up to the higher step with compassion, with kindness, and with understanding, and not by overburdening, because if you break them and they fall, it will be upon you to reconnect them and bring them back up. And so, brothers and sisters, this shows to us as an example that purification is a constant process. Because as we move from one step to the next step, and insha'Allah climb up, if Allah gives us the ability and Allah give us the strength to do so, we need greater purification of the self. We need greater tazkieh of the nafs and balance in our lives to be able to come up of that ladder. And we must recognize that each person occupies a different station. Each person has a jewel inside of them. Just like I believe that I have the universe inside of me, I have this jewel that Allah has given to me, same goes for another person or a different person. Everybody has that jewel. And what is up to me then is to find worth in the beauty that Allah has put inside of me. Find worth in the dignity that God has given to me. And if I recognize this worth, I will never do anything to soil it. Your most prized possession, let's say it is a jewel. Let's say you have some jewelry that you prize and you think is very important and it is very beautiful. You will never allow filth or garbage or dirt to come upon it. In the same way, we must value the jewel that is inside of us. We must value the gift that Allah has given to us and not allow the dirt and the filth of sin and disobedience of God towards God to come upon us. This is the path of self-purification. And if one recognizes the dignity that God has put inside of us, there is no way we will ever allow any sin to come upon us. We will never transgress the rules of Allah because we will say to ourselves, God has made me dignified. God has given me self-dignity. Why am I going to commit a sin and lower myself down? This is the very essence of self-purification and improvement and advancement towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Brothers and sisters, I've mentioned this to you previously, that God has put great potential within us as long as we are connected to Him. It is through Him and through His gift that we can allow this gift, this universe, as Imam Ali alayhi salam has said, to flourish. And our greatest problem is that we lower ourselves, either intentionally or sometimes unintentionally. And we have no confidence in our own ability, in our own God-given ability. In fact, the Ma'soom says to us, لَوْ عَرَفْتُمُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ مَعْرِفَتِهِ لَمَشَيْتُمْ عَلَى الْبُحُورِ. If you knew God, we derive our understanding and our self-worth and our self-dignity from God. It is God who dignifies people, not human beings who dignify other human beings. And so we must understand and be conscious of God. And the Ma'soom says, if you knew God the way you were supposed to know Him, if you had ma'rifah in God, the way you were supposed to have ma'rifah, or the way he is deserving of it, you would have been able to walk on the seas, on the oceans. So it demonstrates to us that the greatest ability for a human being to improve and to advance is by understanding God greater and greater, connecting greater and greater to God. And along with that, intertwined within that, is the concept or the acts of self-purification. And again, we say and remind ourselves that we should have confidence in our ability. We must rely upon ourselves, upon what God has given to us. Yes, we help each other, we support each other, but God says, I have put inside you the ability, the dignity that you can do for yourself and improve on your own, and come to me closer and closer. It is once described that a man who was in great need was sitting with his wife in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. They were in great need, and so he said to his wife, my wife, I am going to go out and maybe I will find Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and ask him to help me out. This man goes out of the house. He knew Rasulullah would pass by a certain direction, so he sat and waited. As he was waiting there, Rasulullah was walking by him, and as the man was about to get up to talk to Rasulullah, he heard Rasulullah saying something under his breath. Rasulullah was saying under his breath that if a person seeks my help, if a person wants something from me, I shall surely give it to them. I shall surely help them and give it to them. But if the person were to exhibit the quality of self-sufficiency, if the person were to be dignified and to take care of themselves and free from want and only rely on God, God would enrich them. God would give them richness. The man heard this and immediately sat down. He did not go and talk to Rasulullah. He thought to himself, maybe Rasulullah meant these words for me. Maybe he was saying it to me. He went back home and he relays the story to his wife. His wife looks at him and she says, my husband, Rasulullah, is a human being like us. He knows how we feel. Go tomorrow and ask him. Maybe he will help you. Maybe if you ask him directly, he will give you some direct help. Again, the next day, the man waits for Rasulullah. And again, Rasulullah, as he is passing by, the man is about to get up, and again he hears Rasulullah say the same thing that he said on the previous day, that if a person needs my help, I shall surely help them. If they need something from me, I would grant it to them. But if the person is dignified, finds sufficiency, and finds what they need within themselves, Allah will enrich them. Allah will give them what they want. And again, the man sits down and does not say anything to Rasulullah. Again, on the third day, he is about to go and talk to Rasulullah, and Rasulullah again repeats the same thing, that be self-sufficient, rely on your own self, have the dignity to rely on your own self, Allah will enrich you. The man decides then that he is not going to ask Rasulullah anything. He goes to meet a friend of his that same day. When he is visiting his friend, he notices that his friend has an axe. He gets a thought in his mind. He says to his friend, would you mind if I borrowed this axe? His friend obliges him, so the man takes the axe. He goes out into the woods near where there are some trees, and he starts to cut the trees down with the axe. After he has collected a whole bunch of wood, he is surprised at how much wood he has collected. He takes the wood back to the city, and he sells it, and he makes some money from that selling and the cutting of the wood. After some time, he continues to do this, cutting the wood and selling it. He notices that he has a business, and as he has some business and some money, he can now hire a helper, and now he has started to develop some wealth, and he starts to develop some affluence. So that once that happens, at one point he says, let me go talk to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. And when he goes, he says to Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, such and such happened. I was waiting for you and you said these words. Finally, I picked up an axe without speaking to you, having spoken to you, and I start to do this work. And now I have this wealth, and Allah has given me sustenance, and I can take care of my wife and my children. Rasulullah says, did I not say to you and remind you, and I remind everyone, that one who seeks independence from other human beings, who values the dignity that has been given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will make him independent. Allah will make it so that he only depends on Allah and on his Rabb and on no other people. Brothers and sisters, this is very important for us to remember, because it is not necessary that we don't need to take help from people. No, Allah has put us on earth to help each other, to take care of each other, to assist each other. But it should not come to the point where we become helpless. where we feel we cannot help ourselves, where we feel we cannot do something for our own benefit. We must constantly strive to help ourselves. If there's any need upon us, any difficulty, anything that we need fulfilled for ourselves, we must ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show us the way that we can do it ourselves. And if all is exhausted from our own effort and our own capability, then Allah will send somebody to help us out. Someone will assist us definitely. But we must not always look to others for help. We must look within and say, Allah has given me dignity to help myself. Allah has given me dignity to remove my own problems. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made me the master of my own fate as long as I do the right thing. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, it is related through Anas ibn Malik that he said, رحم الله امرأ قدم خيرا وأنفق صدقا وقال صدقا وملك دواعي شهوته ولم تملكه وعصى أمر نفسه فلم تملكه. Brothers and sisters, this is a beautiful quotation from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Rasulullah says that Allah's mercy, Allah's kindness is upon those people, upon the people who are the ones who forward things for their own selves, who do things, who sow the seeds that they can reap later on. They act in such a way that they are providing for themselves and ensuring something for their future. So the first thing is, they are not waiting for other people to do things for them. They are not waiting for other people to send things forward for them. If they want the reward of the akhirah, the next world, they themselves are doing the good deeds so that they can reap the reward. They are not waiting for somebody else to help them. And as such, they are making the next world the life that they want to live. The second thing he says, وَأَنْفَقَ قَصْدًا قَصْدًا. I made a mistake the first time I recited this for you. He says, رَحِمَ اللَّهُ إِمْرَأً قَدَّمَ خَيْرًا وَأَنْفَقَ قَصْدًا. The people, the second quality that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, that after doing for yourself and forwarding good things for yourself to the future, Allah says that there are those people who, when they do anything, they spend anything, they take the middle path. They take the path of moderation. They are not extravagant, too extravagant, nor are they miserly and selfish or stingy in their behavior. As such, Rasulullah explains to us that these are the sorts of people who, when they give charity or help somebody, they don't give so much charity that they themselves become poor. They do not give so much charity to the poor person so that the rights of their relatives or the needs of their relatives, the basic needs, are left unfulfilled. Nor do they give too little, nor are they miserly or are they stingy, that the good does not reach the people who need it, that the ni'mah does not reach the people that need it. The third thing that Rasulullah says, that these are the people upon whom Allah's rahmah is there. These are the people whose tongues are not polluted with lies and false things. Their tongues are hidden behind their hearts and not the other way around. Their tongues do not ever say anything that is false or ever anything that is a lie. And then the last things, the things that are most important, that these are the people who capture their own nafs and they enslave the nafs. They make the nafs a slave of themselves rather than they become the slave of their nafs. They do not allow the nafs to dictate anything to them. In fact, they dictate to their own nafs and they control their nafs. Rasulullah says the complete dignity of a person is in this last point. The complete dignity of a servant of God is that they are not the slaves of their nafs. Rather, they have enslaved and controlled their own nafs. This is the dignity of humanity. And so we must now ask ourselves the question, how do we ensure that dignity? How do we make it such that we are not sacrificing that dignity in our lives? And so to address this, we put a situation where we have an opportunity to do something for somebody else or do something for ourselves. We have two options. Either we do something for someone else or we do something for ourselves. And the key to maintaining our dignity is finding a balance in the middle. I just said to you that we should not give charity. We should not give so much wealth and be extravagant in giving our wealth and helping people such that we cannot help ourselves anymore. such that we cannot help our own relatives and take care of our children and our family members. There must be balance. So there must be such balance that we are able to help people in the right measure, in the right amount of adl. And now again, the intertwining nature of these qualities, again, justice and balance comes in. We help people in such a way that we do not sacrifice our own dignity and our own basic needs and what we want. The same goes for how we raise our children, brothers and sisters. We must be such that we raise our children understanding the jewel that God has put inside of them. And one of the things that is very difficult for a parent to understand is that our children are not necessarily exactly like us. They do not feel and understand and have the same qualities, the same strengths and the same weaknesses like us. So we must teach them what is the dignity that God has chosen for them. What is the dignity that God has put inside of them? And to teach them that protect yourself, value your own dignity, and help those people who are in need. Create balance in these things such that you do not sacrifice yourself, nor do you sacrifice the needs of other people. Find a balance and a proper medium. And so we must recognize in doing this, not only the worth of ourselves, but the worth of other people. Now, with respect to us, particularly in the West, we are very quick to fulfill our needs. Because everything is available to us, brothers and sisters, it is not a difficult task to feed your own mouth and to acquire the things that you desire and the things that you want. It is a little harder to take the focus off of your own self and to remember the other person. Remember the dignity of the other person. And to be honest, it is a great act of dignity of a person to see the need of another person, to see the importance of the other person. And you all know the golden rule, the rule that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam has taught us. Want for yourself, want for another person what you would want for yourself, and do not do to the other person what you would not have done to yourself. Live by that rule, understanding that the other person has something in them of value. Al-Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam, he has described to us in a very nice quotation. He says that Allah has created 4 things. These 4 things are hidden inside 4 other things. He has created 4 things hidden in 4 other things. The first thing Al-Imam As-Sajjad alayhi salam says is Allah has created, or He has hidden His pleasure in His obedience. Allah has hidden His pleasure in His obedience. Imam says, do not consider any act of obedience to be small, because you do not know what will please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says the second thing, Allah has hidden His anger and His wrath in His disobedience, or He has hidden His displeasure in His disobedience. So do not consider any act of disobedience to Allah to be small, because you do not know what will displease God. You do not know what will make Allah angry. The third thing Imam says to us, Allah has hidden His answer in His dua. Allah has hidden the answer to dua in the very supplication that you do. Imam says, do not consider any dua to be small. Ask for anything that you want, because you do not know what Allah is going to answer or how He is going to answer. And lastly, coming to the point that I'm focusing on today, Imam says that Allah has hidden His wali, His friends. Allah has hidden His chosen people amongst His creations. So do not consider any one of Allah's creations to be insignificant or small, because you do not know who Allah has chosen as one of His walis, or one of His friends, or one of His chosen people. Value every person, because you do not know if that person may be a chosen of God, because you do not know the dignity that lies inside of that person. We must adopt this quality inside of us, brothers and sisters, because in this is the fruition of ourself, is the improvement of our path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why is it that we lower ourselves down and lose our self-dignity? Why is it that we start to act like animals or lower our behavior? It is because we focus on the ugliness of other people. We see the sins of other people. We see the bad things that other people. And Al-Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam has said, the only reason you can see the sins of other people, or the sins of other people are apparent to you, is because you have the same ills inside of you. You can recognize the same thing that other person is doing because you have it inside of you. This is a very grave lesson for us to remember. that we cannot judge other people. We cannot look at the other person. We must focus on our own dignity, preserving that dignity, and reflecting that dignity onto other people, because we do not know what is inside of them. It is described that one of the companions of Al-Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam, it was known that he was very close, he was a very well-known companion of Al-Imam As-Sadiq. One day he was in the marketplace along with one of his servants. He was along with his servant and he was doing some shopping in the marketplace. The servant left the side of the master to go attend to some other things. When the companion finally finished his shopping and the work that he was doing, he turned to look for the slave. He could not find the servant anywhere, so he called out his name. When the servant did not arrive, was nowhere to be found, the companion continued to do some work and walked around. Again, he turned to look for the servant as he wanted to leave the marketplace, but he could not find the servant. He called out to him. Some time went by. Now the companion of Al-Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam, the master of the servant, he began to feel annoyed. He began to get angry. Finally, after some time, the servant came around the corner and the master, the companion of Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam, saw him. He went up to him and he began to curse him. He began to call him all sorts of names. He began to denigrate him. And in fact, he even called him a very bad name that insulted his mother, the mother of the servant. He called him such a bad name that insulted the mother of the servant, meaning that the servant's mother was a woman of ill repute, that she was somebody who had no honor, no dignity. And so Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam, when he sees this, he is sitting on the side, he sees his companion scolding the servant in this manner. Imam goes to the companion and he says, "You do not know what you have done, but you have lessened your own value by doing what you have done. You have lost dignity in the eyes of God." The companion looks at the Imam. He says, "O grandson of Rasul, this servant of mine, he is not even a Muslim. He is not even an Arab. He is not from this country. He comes from a different place where they have different rules and different customs, and they don't adhere to the customs of Islam and to our customs and traditions over here." Imam says to his companion, "He may not be from here. He may not be from our background or our religion, but wherever he comes from, whatever country or village or town he comes from, they have rules that they live by. His mother has lived by whatever rules they have there, and she is married to his father. You do not know what rules that they live by, so it is not upon you to curse him or to call him names, because you do not know what dignity is inside of him." We must ask ourselves the same question. If we begin to value the dignity of another person, we will value the dignity that is inside of us. If we value what is inside another person, the good, then that will raise our own dignity and our own value inside of us. Somebody who is quick to curse another person, to point out the faults of another person, has no value for themselves and the dignity that God has put. Finally, brothers and sisters, I say to you, in a time when there are a lot of people who don't know the true face of Islam, who are misconstrue the ideas of Islam because of what is presented to them. They see Islam as something that it is not because of a few extreme people. And so the goal upon us, the true believers, the true people who are trying to find the path of God and purification, is to live the way God wants and to show the true message of Islam. And that means to recognize not only our own dignity and the dignity of others. We must show people, those who do not know about us, the true dignity of human beings as represented by Islam. One day, Al-Imam Al-Hasan Al-Mujtaba alayhi salam was sitting in the mosque with some of his companions. A Syrian man came in, and as the man came in, he was finishing his worship. When he finished the worship, he noticed Al-Imam Al-Hasan, but he did not know who he was or what his name was. He noticed, and he went and asked somebody sitting near to him. He said, "Who is this man who looks so dignified, wearing the white? Who is he?" The man sitting next to him said to the Syrian that this person is Al-Hasan Al-Mujtaba, Al-Hasan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. Hearing this, the Syrian flew into a rage, went to Al-Imam Al-Hasan Al-Mujtaba and began to curse him and call him all sorts of names and began to mistreat him. Hearing this, the companions who were sitting with Al-Imam Al-Hasan, they stood up and they started to pull their swords out. Al-Imam Al-Hasan, seeing that they wanted to harm the man who was accosting him and cursing him, he told them to sit down. He quieted and calmed them down. Imam Al-Hasan went to the Syrian man. He said to him with great sweetness in his voice, He says, my brother, my friend, you are a visitor to this place. You have come from far away. Allow me to be your host. Come be a guest in my house. Allow me to be your host and take care of you. The Syrian, who was in a rage and angry, suddenly was startled by the answer of Imam al-Hasan. He, after a little cajoling and a little persuading, he went with Imam al-Hasan to his house. Imam al-Hasan, it is described, for 3 days took care of this man. He gave him whatever food he wanted, treated him with great kindness, gave him preference in everything, treated him like a host treats a guest. On the 3rd day, this Syrian man sitting in front of Imam al-Hasan, he says, you, O al-Hasan ibn Ali, you have treated me so kindly and you have been so hospitable to me that I am feeling ashamed at how I behaved towards you. He says, I'm feeling very badly about what I did. Imam al-Hasan looked at him. He says, that is okay. No matter. Do not feel bad. He says, what I did was the way of my family. The way I acted towards you and the hospitality I showed to you is what our religion teaches us, and it is the way of my family. So the Syrian man turns to Imam al-Hasan. He says, who is your family? I am not familiar. Like you said, I am from outside of this place. Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam turns to him. He says, I am the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, but I am also the son of Fatima al-Zahra, who is the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Hearing this, the Syrian man is astounded. He says, you are the grandson of Rasulullah? I did not know that that was your position, but now seeing your behavior, I can see truly that you are the reflection of the Prophet of Islam, of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Your kindness upon me is so great. I swear, the Syrian man says, I swear that when I came here and I saw you first, there was no one more hated to me than you and your father. But now, after you have treated me in this manner, I find that there is no one more beloved to me than you and your family. Allow me to serve you and take care of you. Imam treats him kindness and dismisses him. Then Imam goes, and after dismissing and saying farewell to this man, he goes to his companions. The companions are told about what happened, and they observed what happened and how Imam treated them, and how the heart of this Syrian man turned towards Imam Hassan and was converted towards the beauty of the Ahl al-Bayt and the understanding of their position. He went to his companions, and Imam al-Hassan said, you guys, you wanted to take out swords to harm this man. Don't you know that he was just ignorant? He did not know our true nature. He did not know who we are. I had to remain dignified regardless of whether he treated me poorly. Even though he cursed me and said bad things to me, I had to remain dignified, and I had to treat him with dignity. Even though he did not protect my dignity and he cursed me, I had to protect his dignity. It is by this that we were able to turn his heart. Brothers and sisters, this is what we must adopt. Preserve our own dignity, not lower ourselves despite what anyone else does, and show other people that that dignity of humanity exists everywhere. It is God-given to us. With this, I wish you well. Wassalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.